Welcome, scholars, to Lesson 2-1.11, What About the Ladies? Ottoman Edition. Today we're going to be taking a look at the cultural side of the Ottoman Empire, in particular, the role of women within this empire, how it changes and evolves throughout time, and really how it doesn't change and evolve all that much. Let's take it back to the beginning. In the beginning, back when we're just talking about the Turkish nomads, prior to their migration to Anatolia, when they're out in the plains of Central Asia, we have a nomadic culture. And in nomadic cultures, we have a lot more equality. We have a lot more power for women in general. And women within these Turkish clans, within this Turkish tribe, were very influential, very important, because the men are going to be off quite often, doing herding, hunting, or raiding. And when the men were off doing these things, the women would be in charge of managing the clan business. Women would be in charge of managing resources and dealing with the training of young children. And women really had a lot of role within these societies. And in these societies, with these roles, women had a lot of influence. If they're the ones managing the clans, then the men really need to pay attention to what their women are telling them. And this is very true to most tribal societies, was very true to the Turkic populations prior to this migration. Now, within the Ottoman Empire, we see that the Turks hold on to a lot of this, at least initially. Under Osman and under his immediate successors, women continue this role. Women really are the managers of the empire. And when the men are off fighting wars, it is the women who are running things, quite literally. They're not checking in on every little detail. The women are in charge. And this puts women in a very public role. Women are going to be managing the large estates left behind by a noble member of the Turkic army, of the Ottoman army, and women are going to be out there giving orders to other men, and it's normal and it's accepted, and this is the role that the Turkish women have always played. They're just doing it in a more settled, civilized society now. But this is going to change as the Ottoman Empire starts to see itself as the successors of the Islamic Empire, and as Islam starts to take on a more important character. And this really starts to change in the mid-1400s after the capture of Constantinople. And once the Ottoman Turks are really the dominant Islamic power in the world, and they want to embrace this Islamic culture as they try to seek out ways to merge and expand and annex other Islamic territories. So we start to see women having less of a public role in society and are increasingly isolated from business and government. But this is mostly just the public side of things. Much less of this is true in the private side. Privately, women continue to exert a lot of influence. They're just not doing it as publicly. Unless, of course, we're talking about the lower classes. The lower classes, particularly amongst the Turkish population. Remember, this is a multi-ethnic society, so we're still looking at a lot of Arabs, a lot of other ethnic groups within the group that have their own traditions, their own customs, that are a little bit more subdued with women. But this is the Turks. They have this tribal society. Women are used to being in charge. And this Islamic image of what a woman was supposed to be like, it's not really fully embraced by the Turkish lower classes. And we actually see that this is true all the way through to today. If we were to look at women's role in society in, say, Saudi Arabia, Arab nation, the heartland of Arab ethnicity, it's very different than modern Turkey, where women are very much out in the open, running things, business owners, politicians, etc. So this Islamic image doesn't mesh as much with the Turkish lower classes. These women are very much involved in the economy and they're mingling with men out in public, a number of things that a quote-unquote Islamic woman would not be doing, because this is the Arab Islamic view of what women should be like in society. Now, in the upper classes, we see more reserve. These are the women in power who want to maintain that power for their families, and they're going to be a little bit more sensitive to the cultures of the empire as a whole. Now, they're still going to have power. They're still going to use power, but they're going to use it more subtly, and they're going to use it in private. But I want to really highlight something here that I think is important for us to know, is that the Ottoman government knew that these women had private power and were very influential privately, and publicly we were going to be pulling back on that a little bit, but they wanted to make sure that the legal system continued to protect these women, and that the legal system did not start to see women as being dramatically inferior to men. And so we consistently see Ottoman courts protecting women's property rights. Women could own property independent from their husband or from their parents, and no man in their family could claim their property as theirs, not without their consent. And this was vigorously defended by the Ottoman courts throughout the centuries. Women had these rights. They also had other rights as well. Divorce was not common, but it could happen, and this under certain circumstances, and that was protected for women, and some other rights as well. So there was well-established women's rights in the Ottoman Empire, nothing to what we would consider women's rights movement today to be, but it was well-established. We see that amongst this upper class, the women are choosing to seclude themselves. They are voluntarily taking this less public role. So we start to see this image of Ottoman women as being powerless and being not much of an influence on society as a whole. But it's important to realize and to remember that this was something that was done by choice for the most part. And when we actually look at the legal system and the legal rights, Ottoman women had more legal rights than most European women through this time. Now, we cannot get into a discussion of women's rights without talking about the harem. The harem is, technically speaking, we're talking about a part of the Muslim household which is reserved for women. And this is going to be where the most powerful women of the empire reside. It's going to be the Sultan's harem that has the Sultan's mother, the Sultan's wives, the Sultan's concubines. They're all existing within this harem. And the harem starts to be a place where these women are influencing greatly the sultans. We even have this one case of this one woman, Roxolana. Remember that name, Roxolana, who is the wife of Suleiman the Magnificent. And a lot of things are attributed to Suleiman the Magnificent, including all this wonderful architectural revolution and new buildings throughout the Ottoman Empire. And it was Roxolana who really used her influence to push these projects forward. So we see real, true power within the harem, one that literally transformed the appearance of this empire. So the harem had real power, especially as empire sultans start to withdraw to their harems and become less involved in government as a whole. They still have a lot of power, and the women of the harem are able to exert that through their influence on these sultans. So that is women in society in the Islamic Empire. And I hope you enjoyed this. We're going to take a couple more lessons to look at the cultural side of the Ottoman Empire in particular, and you'll be seeing those in lessons coming up.